Day number 2. So what have I been thinking about today? Well, actually between about 6 a.m. and about 7 a.m., this guy right here, and I'm not pointing at the lawnmower, I'm pointing at this, troubled me quite a bit. I've thought pretty extensively about ways that I could take what you're seeing here, which is clamped down nice and flat, and get it to stay that way when I release the clamps. I thought about putting an L channel underneath. I thought about taking that and putting screw after screw after screw into the wood. The pro here is that the wood is pine. It's relatively soft, easy to screw into, but the downside is that the likelihood of those screws actually holding once they come under tension from the movement of the wood in the opposite direction is probably not going to be very successful. So I also thought, what else could I do? The thing that I came up with that I think would probably be the most successful is taking a long drill bit, starting down here at this end, drilling in straight through it, and inserting myself a piece of rebar that would give some flex and some give, but also a lot of resistance to the desire of that wood to return to a little bit of a cup position. This has been one of my favorite projects and something that I've been working on over the last 7 weeks. It's taken me a long time, but it's a labor of love. So let's take a look at what we're talking about, okay? Now, why has it taken so long? As you take a look at this top here, you can see that these are many different pieces of pine that have been laminated together to make one single top. Typically, when you do this, you get dimensional lumber from a lumber yard that's already had a face put on it, okay? You start with something that looks a little bit like this, okay? You can see that it's a rectangle, but you can understand that the corners are relatively square. In an effort to get that to happen, I went out and I purchased my very own joiner. Now, this is the first joiner that I've ever purchased. And what happens is as you put your wood up against this face, these teeth underneath here create what ends up being a square angle. Now the difference is that all of this lumber here was actually milled here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now most of it comes from down trees, from storms or hurricanes in this case. But it's kind of cool because this is old growth pine that came from this very city. That's why I wanted to make this table, which is going to be a unique piece, I think, in our house, out of locally sourced lumber. Now, most of the other furniture that I have in my living room and around my house is locally sourced lumber. Some of it is oak, some of it is red oak, some of it is white oak, and they're just fantastic pieces. And they're things that I think have a lot of character to them. Both, I think I've made 3 end tables now out of those. They're all unique, they're all different, and they have their imperfections, and I've left the saw marks in those pieces of lumber so that you can see those things. Here's another piece. I found myself a cedar log the other day, and you can see the saw marks in this. Looks very interesting. You can see that it's been milled out of a live piece of cedar, but you can also see that now it's got a little bit of a warp to it. Well, what I did is I manufactured my own lumber out of a piece of cedar, and I built myself another little end table. Just a fun little project. It wasn't to prove anything. It wasn't to do anything other than just have some fun. But what's interesting is how things turn out and the uniqueness and the nature, I think, of the concept that I created that for my family and for the people that get to share or see those things. So I'm still thinking about this thing. Still thinking about it. So if you've got ideas for ways that I can keep that nice and flat by reinforcing it, let me know in the comments down below. Yesterday we had some very interesting comments from people, but let's go a little bit more in depth. Use your brain, think about those things that maybe you haven't spent as much time on. Right now is a really interesting time. My business or my institution that I work for is in a state of flux. I'm talking to some of my people that I work with and I'm reminding them that let's deal with certainties. Let's not deal with possibilities. Let's deal with what we know. And what I know, I love working with wood. Thanks for coming by, guys. Talk to you tomorrow.